Greetings, bike travelers and bike packers. Welcome to another episode of Chainwheel Diaries. Stories about bike travel told by the travelers themselves. I'm your host, Brian Berlin. The Katy Trail is a dedicated bike, pedestrian, and equestrian path that spans most of Missouri with trailheads at Clinton and Matchins. Hundreds, if not thousands, of bicyclers have ridden all or portions of the trail. The 237-mile trail follows the abandoned path of the former Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad, nicknamed Katy. The surface is crushed limestone suitable for any type of bike. There's little to no elevation, and tree canopies provide shade over most of the route. The Katy is a mecca for bicyclers looking for a car-free bike adventure through the heartland of America. My friend Chris Compton and I decided to ride the entire trail in July 2025, starting June 29th, and finishing in St. Charles in time for 4th of July fireworks. Chris and I decided to devote a podcast episode to reliving our Katy Trail adventure. We slogged through rain, experienced multiple flat tires, met some great people, including my Missouri relatives, visited quaint towns along the way, and generally had a blast. We think you'll love hearing our recollections of riding the Katy Trail. Thanks for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Chris and Brian's epic Katy Trail adventure coming up next. Chris and I are going to share our recollections of riding the Katy Trail this last July. We met in St. Louis. You were already there. I flew there with my bike in a bag as checked luggage. We met at the Drury Hotel that was blocks away from the Union Station where we were going to take the train.
We had a quandary. We were not staying in the same hotel on the night before the ride as we were going to on the night before you flew back home to California. And we had a car. And so we either had to put the car at the End Hotel or leave the car at the Union Station Hotel and somehow get back to the car. So we had to choose one of those things. And we also did not know if we could park the car at the hotel and leave it there, if it would be okay. And parking was like $40 a day in all the surrounding lots. So we had to make a decision. Do you remember that quandary?
Yes, and I remember the decision, and it turned out to be the right one.
It did. It was a great decision. We just said, what's the worst thing that can happen? Leave the car here. You know, we left your luggage in the car and you had an air tag in there. And so once a day or so, probably more than that, I bugged you to see if the car had been towed yet. And they never towed it. And we'll talk about getting the car at the end, but the car was it was safe.
We managed to get out of the hotel and onto the street, and in our efforts to locate Union Station, we first pulled into a hotel lobby, Union Station Hotel, or the Amtrak Station Hotel.
I had forgotten that, but you're right, we did. And I thought for sure we were at the train station and we're pushing our bikes up the stairs, heavily laden with the things we would need for our trip. And we got them in there, and what the guy didn't let us in.
No. So we backed out, and a couple of blocks later, we actually found Union Station. And from there, we managed to find our way to the train. It's called the Missouri River Runner. Our grand plan was to train to Sedalia and then disembark with our bikes and ride from Sedalia to Clinton, and then turn around the following day, Clinton back to Sedalia. So how did that work out? Well, it's about a 3.5 hour, 4 hour train ride that turned into 6 hours. The train stopped 3 times on its route, once to allow a freight train to pass, once to allow crews to clear fallen tree limbs from the tracks, and then another to let an Amtrak passenger train, probably the Missouri River Runner coming the other way, to pass. And it wasn't scenic because it rained on us pretty much the entire way. But we did get to Sedalia about 2 in the afternoon. So we started riding. We rode through Sedalia, nice looking little town, and began our ride. And little by little, the rain started to fall on us.
I didn't really know what to expect with this trail. And from Sedalia to Clinton, it was very slightly uphill, but it was also it was the loosest of the surfaces on the trip. So the surface was loose and it was raining. And we started in the afternoon, and I think we were feeling a little bit of time pressure to get in and be done with the thing. It turned into a pretty long day. Some would call it a slog.
We stopped in Green Ridge and put on our rain gear. But you're right, it was soft in places, the trail, even though it's crushed limestone and seemed to drain pretty well. But we made it to Clinton around 7 p.m. The sun was out in Clinton when we got there around,
It was like a beautiful day. If it
yeah.
had been like that
Well,
all day, what a joyous occasion it would have been. When people do these trips, there's different ways to do them. Previous trips that I had done solo, I didn't make any plans at all. I just said, I'm going to go from point A to point B, across Florida, across the US, whatever it was going to be, and every day I'll figure it out. We had two different ways to approach it, and some days we reserved in advance and we had a plan, and some days we kind of wung it. So this
yeah.
first night, I had booked a hotel because something you had suggested I read said that that particular hotel tends to get booked up, and it was the best one. I don't know if that was necessary or not, but I really liked the hotel. I would stay there again.
Yeah. And some other amenities. It was across the street from a really good Mexican restaurant, El Puerto, or the Door. Um, and then on the same side of the street was a grocery store that had a Starbucks inside. We went to El Puerto for dinner, and I left my sunglasses. Didn't remember that I'd left them there and didn't discover that until the next day when we were about to leave the hotel to begin the ride.
They have to be in the restaurant. That just has to be where they are. And
And
I
you
rode over
found the
there, and
one person.
the whole glass door was you couldn't see in. And
Right.
I was banging on the glass door like this, and nobody was coming. And so I thought there has to be somebody here because they open at 11, and this was about maybe 9, 8:45, 9. But people come in early and they chop onions and stuff. They got to be
Yeah.
somebody here. So I
Prep work.
walked around the side of the building, and it was a building that had had a drive-through. And I looked through the drive-through window, and there was a guy looking right back at me. And I was like, "Hey!" And he opened the door, and I mi español está muy malo, but I was trying to, in my best Spanish, ask about lentes, which I'm pretty sure are glasses. And he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, we got those." Then he opened a drawer, and there they were.
And when you
Yeah.
rode back to the hotel where I had finished rummaging once again through the hotel room, looking under the beds and looking just basically everywhere and beginning to think this could be the biggest setback yet. You rode up, and I couldn't tell from the expression on your face whether or not you'd found them, but you were holding them in your hand.
It was an omen of good things to come.
Yes. So, speaking of good things to come, it wasn't raining at that particular time. So, we headed to the trailhead where we had a ring the bell ceremony because I guess that's tradition when you ride the Katy Trail. If you start at one end or the other, you ring the bell. And when you finish the ride, you ring the other bell. We had a little ring the bell ceremony and it began to rain. Back went the pannier covers, on went the rain gear, and off we went. There's a caboose in Windsor, and we posed in front of the caboose, which is a very touristy thing to do, but we did. After we posed for those pictures, we found Judy's Kitchen, and we highly recommend Judy's.
It was great.
Yeah. I mean,
It was like a meat and two, and they had five or six different things on the menu, and you could get two sides with it, and everything that I ate I thought was delicious. And it was packed.
and it was packed. We made it to Sedalia again at about 4 in the afternoon. I spot a coffee shop. We pull in, we order some coffees, we sit down, let's overnight in Sedalia. So currently at that time, The weather was dry, but it was cloudy. And the forecast was for like one of those famous Midwestern storms that was rolling in. You kind of wanted to keep going. I wanted to spend the night. We compromised and we spent the night.
And that's how all good teams do it, Brian. They compromise and they go with what's the greatest or the least common denominator. So at this point, just to summarize, we had ridden a train across the state, ridden our bicycles 80 miles, and we were now further from where we started than when we got off the train. Is that correct?
That's correct. You made a note of that.
We're 2 days in and we've gone backwards.
Once again, finding lodging fell to you because you're really good at it, and you found a Comfort Inn. This was a really nice Comfort Inn. One of
What
the
was this
nicest,
about? It was about a 3 mile ride, I think, 3 or 4
yeah,
miles through town.
really nice Comfort Inn.
And then, luckily enough, at the Comfort Inn, you managed to finagle us a hose. Somebody had to come out and bring us one.
We
Yeah,
got all of the mud off of our bikes and rolled in, got set up in our room, and sure enough, the storm came, and it was one of those really good ones where it was blowing the trees. The rain was coming in sideways. That evening, we ate across the street at Lemaire's Cajun Catfish.
yeah.
The next morning, the sun is out, and now it's really, the humidity is rising as well as the temperature. But because we overnighted in Sedalia, we need to pick up the pace a little bit. We're going to go on to Boonville, meet up with my cousin, the other Brian Berlin, and his
That's
wife,
right.
Barb, and we're going to have lunch with them. We really hadn't planned out the rest of that. We had only planned as far as Boonville. When we got to Boonville and met up with my cousin, he urged us to go to Cooper's Landing because he
Yep.
said, once you're at Boonville on the Katy Trail, you go over the river on a bridge, you make a right, and now you're on railroad grade, pretty much downhill or flat the rest of the way to St. Charles, which is where we were going to end up for the 4th of July. My cousin, the other Brian Berlin, is really into the details and the area, and he had done a lot of research. He knew a lot about the Katy Trail, and he recommended that our next stop be Cooper's Landing, which was a RV park slash campground right on the river. That is the destination that we chose. That was some pretty good mileage that day. That was over 60 miles. Made it to Cooper's Landing, but not without our first incident. Other side of the river, first flat tire. We won't give away how many flat tires because that's part of the story. But rear tire, tube replaced, pumped up, and off we go. And now we're finally catching glimpses of the Missouri River because we are basically following the Missouri River as the railroad did back in the day. As we get closer to Cooper's Landing, another
Yep.
flat tire. This is flat tire number 2.
When you say two, is this two for you, two for me, or one for each?
This is 2 for me.
Okay, two on your bike. Okay.
Second flat tire, and that's my second spare tube that we put in there, and we limped into Cooper's Landing.
It was really funny. It was really interesting because Brian and I do things differently on the bicycle, but neither one of us are right or wrong. We just have our own way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's cool to be exposed to other ways to do things. That's how you learn. And I thought that for a couple of guys that had only met on the telephone and for one meal to come together from opposite coasts and ride for 6 days together, I thought we got along really famously. The other thing is, sometimes these things happen and you look back at them and you think, oh, I made the wrong decision there. I really messed that up. I'm not sure that's the case. I think it may just be some, happenstance. Things happen on a bicycle and you just have to accept whatever happens and deal with it. And if you did the same ride on the same tires again, you might not even have a flat tire. It's a lot of luck in it.
When you're doing a multi-day ride like this, you can expect to have some problems, and you should anticipate having some problems so that you address them. All right, Cooper's Landing.
I didn't I didn't love it.
Yeah. But when we got there, it looked pretty promising.
It just seemed like a lot for not a lot, for just camping in a field. We could have just camped on the side of the road somewhere and gotten basically the same experience. It was a nice view, though. It was right on the river.
So, final comment on Cooper's Landing: satisfactory. Lack of amenities meant we were miles from a decent breakfast. So the food shack is not even open to get a cup of coffee, which is kind of how I begin my day. We get on the bikes and we're figuring we'll ride down the road, we'll find some coffee for me, maybe something to eat for you. And we stopped at the Hartsburg trailhead and there was water. So not all these trailheads had water and electricity, but some of them had water, some of them had electricity, some of them had neither.
Mhm.
So I was able to fill up my hydro pack that's inside my frame bag, fill up all my water bottles. You filled up your water bottle. As I started to roll my bike forward, I looked down and I had another flat tire. This is also the front. So this is 3 flats in less than 2 days and hard to figure out what's going wrong. You dig out a spare, we install it, inflate it, and once again, we're off to basically destinations unknown. We set our immediate sights on Jefferson City, the capital of Missouri. We stopped at the North Jefferson Trailhead, and you found a bike shop in Jeff City about 2.7 miles away. Good news, we're out of spare tubes. And as we roll into Jefferson City, I have another flat tire, or the front tire is flat again. And I walk my bike the rest of the way to the bike shop.
It was really just an amazing thing, is what
It
it
was.
was.
It
Here we
was.
are. And we couldn't even believe it. It's another
Yes.
it's like there is no way.
But we make it to the bike shop, the Red Wheel Bike Shop. Highly recommend.
That guy
And
took good care of us.
he took very good care of us. He thoroughly checked my tires to see if anything was amiss, but we were looking at it the wrong way. We should have basically, I would have right then and there said, if you have Schwalbe Marathon Pluses in stock in my size, put them on. You bought a spare, I bought two more spares, and coffee shop right next door. So this is the longest I've gone without coffee, probably in a multitude of years. And we picked out a rib joint near the Capitol called Sweet Smoke. So we're at Sweet Smoke, really good barbecue, by the way. And
It
we
was good.
weighed our options. And it's 50 miles to the next big spot, which is Herman.
And it's early. What is it? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, one
Two in
thirty,
the
something like
two
that.
in the
Mhm.
afternoon. It's pretty warm. And we decide to overnight in Jefferson City. And you find another great place. This is the Baymont, and it was totally cool, clean, free breakfast. But we were both tired because when we got into our rooms, we just laid down on our beds and both took long naps.
It's easy to get in a rhythm on a bicycle adventure, and you can knock out 60 to 80 miles a day, and it doesn't take long to get in the kind of shape to do that. Even us, we're not young guys, um, but we could knock out 60 to 80 miles. But it's not without cost. And
Not
when you get
without
it, and
cause.
when you get a chance to lay down, your body is like, oh yeah, I think
Yes,
that's an
thank you.
X. We slept outside the night before, so now we're inside. It's comfortable.
It
You
is.
know,
It's air
sound of the air
conditioned
conditioner running. You know,
and there's a free breakfast.
yeah, and
But
a free breakfast.
for dinner, we went next door to Cinco de Mayo. That was good. And our goal the following day, day 5, technically, day 5, we're going to ride to Herman, if not beyond. We're in and out of Jeff City. We enter the trail and a mile, fifth flat in 3 days. I replace the tube with one I just purchased in Jeff City. I'm now underinflating the tires because I think the more air they have in them, the more pinch flats that they get. So I'm underinflating. Spoiler alert, no more flat tires. But we're at the Mocaine Trailhead and we meet this lady. Remember this older lady? She's walking the trail. She was a nice
Yeah,
lady. And we're getting hungry and we're thinking about stopping somewhere. And she recommends Holzhauer's Bar and Grill, and it's right off the trail in Portland. Best burger around, she says. We make it there and we both get bacon cheeseburgers, and they were top notch.
We were not disappointed.
We're paralleling the Missouri River and we're getting glimpses of it. And this is actually, it's pretty nice. We're enjoying this part of the ride. We reached the McKittrick trailhead and we're at a fork in the road, figuratively.
And literally, because we could go across the water into town,
Right.
or we can go to the left and continue our journey.
You offer that we could ride the bridge into Herman and then take a state highway and ride east another 10 miles or so to a place called Pinckney and overnight, and that would leave us around 50 miles to St. Charles. But we'd be off the Katy Trail and we'd have to get back on the Katy Trail somewhere down the line in Washington,
And
or
we'd be riding on a road that we didn't know anything about. We didn't know
do
if it was
nothing,
going to be a
do nothing.
two-lane highway, what it was going to be. And luckily, there was somebody there that gave us a little insight on that.
We're thinking about this, and there's a guy sitting in the shade on a bench just a few feet away from us. Next to him is his car, and next to his car is his bike. So he's a bicycler. So I go over and start talking to him. His name is Harry, and he's waiting on another ride. Remember this? He's ready, waiting on another rider to join him at the trailhead, and then they're going to do a mad dash to St. Charles and back.
If I understand it correctly, there was a 16-year-old that had started in Clinton and
Yes,
was riding, that was doing a solo one-way Katy Trail ride. And Harry had agreed to meet him and pace him for the last 70 miles of the ride.
that's it.
So Harry was going to do that set. Well, it's, what is it, 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah,
Something
it's
like
late.
that.
Yeah,
So it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So this kid's not here yet. It gets dark, I don't know, 9:30, probably dark. So he's got 5.5 hours to ride 70 miles to the end of the trail if the kid shows up right now. But that's not where Harry's day was done. The kid's mom was going to pick him up at the end of the trail. Harry was going to turn around and ride in the dark back to where he was. And we got to talking with him, and he told us he had done a full out and back, both directions of the Katy Trail in one day. But the fact that people out there are doing that says that you or I or anybody that's watching this, we can do pretty much anything that we really want to do. And I
that's right.
find that very inspiring. So meeting Harry was one of my favorite parts of our trip.
Harry was very inspiring, nice guy. And his conclusion was go to Herman. It's a fabulous town. You'll love it. Spend the night there. You'll be grateful. Do not ride that state highway. We're in Herman, and it is
And
really a
we
cool,
struck
cool
gold
place.
again with the hotel.
So the
We had another
hotel,
great hotel in Herman.
Herman Crown Suites,
What a
which
great hotel this was.
and it was unusual because it was kind of a hotel, but it was also kind of like an Airbnb.
It was like a restaurant and a performance space and a bar and a hotel on one side of the street, and then on the other side of the street it was like a little apartment. We got basically an apartment. We each had
We
our
had
own
an
bedroom.
apartment, two
With
bedrooms.
we had a living room and a bathroom. We didn't
Yes,
have a kitchen, but the next morning we went across the street for breakfast, and it was anything you could think of that anybody's ever cooked for breakfast before was on this buffet.
we now, our goal is to get to St. Charles for the 4th of July. It is the 4th of July now, and we've got 66 miles or so to go. But we're really enjoying Herman, and
We had a nice dinner in Herman.
we had a great dinner in Herman.
We ate at a restaurant that's been around for like 100 years. I forget the name of the restaurant. It used to be a performance venue, and then it turned into a restaurant.
It's called the Concert Hall and Barrel Tavern on First Street. If you stop in Herman, I guarantee you will like it.
In our hotel, the night that we were there was a guy playing the guitar and singing songs in the courtyard, and we sat in the courtyard for a bit and listened to that guy.
It's July 4th. I'm up at 5 a.m. and one of the amenities is a coffee maker. So I'm making coffee. We had the fantastic breakfast buffet. We're back over the bridge. We're onto the trail at McKittrick. The 66 miles you calculated for the day includes getting from Herman to the trail. So it's not mileage in addition to that. So we've got 66 miles. We're making good time now. We stop in Washington. I've been texting with a cousin. She's not available to meet with us, but we stop at the Marthasville trailhead and we meet a couple of people there. A father-daughter duo. They're riding the trail to Mocaine and back. And the father is really interested in our experience. He was a great guy, noting our fully loaded bikes. And we give props to the daughter for hanging out with her father and joining him on a bike ride. But she and her dad really typify the kind of people that we met on the trail. So the early start, lack of mechanical, i.e., flat tire challenges, and we're hauling butt. We stop for lunch off the trail at Circle 6. Now, this place is literally on the trail. Good meal, and the bartender was nice enough to fill my Hydra pack with ice water and my water bottles as well. And we have 20 miles remaining. We pause at the final place we rest is the Green Bottom Trail. You recline on one of the benches and you're out like a light. I'm texting with my niece, whom we're going to meet in St. Charles. And she and her family, so they have two kids, a boy and a girl, and her husband. They're going to meet us at our destination, which is the Sundermeyer RV Park. So I let Chris know I'm heading out, and you say you'll catch up with me, which we did.
But I had a harder time catching up with you than I thought that I would. I thought that I would just run you down, but you're making pretty good time. I had to get on it to catch up with you.
We're rolling through Frontier Park, which is getting ready for the 4th of July, and it's already going
a lot of
great
people
guns. A lot of people.
And
We
little
find the
carnival
RV
rides
park,
and food stands and that sort of thing.
the whole thing. We made it to the RV park. My niece and her husband and her
And your
kids are
your
there,
family was there to welcome us as conquering heroes, which was kind of cool.
which is what we were, basically, that we'd made
Yeah,
it that far.
basically.
They actually have parked on an RV pad that was not rented. So Darlene at the Sundermeyer RV Park had said, park your car there, no big deal. So that's where they were. And there's a picnic table. So we all sat around. They're drinking beer, we're drinking water. Then they leave and we set up our tents. And we have really a nice spot, I would say. Probably the only grassy spot.
With one small exception, we had a nice spot. Somehow or another, I must have camped on an anthill because the next day I was covered from about the lowest part of my back up into my shoulders and neck with whelps. And it was about 6 weeks before they were all gone. But that's my fault. But I would say just camping in general, you might look for anthills.
You
And
might. You might. My camp setup was pretty good, and I was carrying a 10-foot extension cord, feeling very smug because I had access to power. And so I powered up, connected to a power strip, and I charged everything. We also had really nice showers there. We had good showers set up. So we're now sparkly clean. And you find a restaurant for us. We take an Uber into town and we are at Jalea, Jalea, on Main
it was
Street.
great.
It was so good.
It was great.
And the proprietors, it's a family that owns it. The proprietors were just marvelous. They were so sweet. They talked to us. We told them our stories. We had just a wonderful, wonderful experience. The fireworks are beginning.
We had a front row seat to the fireworks.
Front row seat. We get the Uber driver who gives us the entire history of St. Charles on our way back to the RV campsite. Just fantastic. From our campsite, we could see them more than clearly. There were like three different arrays of fireworks that we could see, I think.
Well, we had the fireworks right on top of us there from the park that we had ridden through
Right.
earlier.
From
But
Frontier
then we
Park.
also had a really good view of the downtown St. Louis fireworks. They were
Yes.
off in the distance, but they were very clear. And they were kind enough to keep fireworks going until about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning.
So tomorrow is literally our final day of riding. We're going to ride from St. Charles to the St. Louis airport. We're up reasonably early, but we're in no real hurry today. We didn't have time for breakfast, but I did order a Starbucks from DoorDash, and the poor
I forgot
DoorDash
about that.
driver
Yeah.
couldn't find us, but we could see him, and we're waving at him. We're waving, 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 and finally, and then he's calling us, and we're giving him directions. Dude, look right. You're looking right at us. So he figured it out, and
I
my
think this is an
Starbucks,
experience. Even
yes,
Lewis and Clark probably had a similar experience to this.
with DoorDash, most likely, yes,
Yeah.
but $10 for a Starbucks, and it was totally worth it.
And what we have to do, Brian, is we have to get back. We have to get to our hotel because the next day you're flying out of the airport. So we've got a
Exactly, and
hotel
that's
at the
why
airport.
which is why we're staying near the airport.
We're staying at the St. Louis Airport Drury Hotel. Well, we had parked at the Drury Hotel by Union Station, as we talked about in the beginning. So what we decide to do is we're going to ride into town and get to the hotel we're staying at, which is closer to us. And then Brian is going to break down his bike and get ready to get on the airplane the next day. And I get to do my favorite thing, which is to ride through a city. And I'm
And
going to
you did.
ride over to Union Station,
And you
and
did.
that's what we did.
We're going to head off to the airport and find our hotel. This became an interesting part of our Katy Trail adventure. We have no trouble finding the airport, but once we get to the airport, we begin riding around the inside of the airport looking
What
for our
the
hotel.
wrong the wrong one of us was leading. The stubborn one of us that felt certain that this must be the way to go led us around the circle, I think 3 times
Three
before you took
times.
charge and says, no, no, we were not going there again. We are not.
This is one of those interesting situations where you can see your destination, but you're not 100% sure on how you get there. All I was sure of is if we kept going around in circles, we weren't going to get there. So we went right this time under the I-70 and made a left, and we're at our hotel. We're at the hotel, we check in, but you get back on your bike and you ride from the Drury Lambert Airport to the Drury St. Louis Union Station.
I think it was about another 15 miles or so. And St. Louis, I give it a fairly high bike riding rating. There are lots of trails. There are several colleges there, and there are lots of trails through the colleges and big wide sidewalks. And there were places that I rode on the road, but I never felt like I didn't have an escape route if the road were too busy. I always felt like there was a sidewalk I could get on, or I could just go a couple of blocks over and ride on a parallel street. I really enjoyed the ride. I stopped at a convenience store and had some sort of food off the roller and a soft drink, and I just sat outside and talked to people for a few minutes. I really enjoyed riding through the universities. There's a huge park in St. Louis, and at one point I knew the name of it, and it was probably not that long ago, but I can't remember. But there's a huge park, and on the border of that park are enormous homes. And so I got to ride down the street with the park on one side of me and these beautiful homes on the other. I really enjoyed that. I got to see some trains going through town. I assume commuter trains. And eventually I was rewarded. I got back to the parking garage. I was able to easily go into the parking garage with my bike. The car was still there. Your luggage was still there. I drive a tiny little compact car, but I can take the front wheel off my bike and get the bike in there. So I've got everything loaded up. And now my only question is, am I going to need a room key to get out of the parking garage? Because I don't have one. And if I do need a room key to get out of the parking garage, Then what? So I'm sitting in my car, everything's loaded up, right? I'm ready to go, and I'm pondering, should I wait until somebody else is coming out and tell them my plight and get them to help me? And I said, well, I could at least try. And I pulled up to the gate. The gate opened. I drove right out.
You're back at the hotel. You meet up with a nice lady who works for you in your property management business.
My dear friend, and she does work in the company that I own, but more than anything, she's just a dear friend. Her name is Sunshine Bond, and she lives in Columbia, which was I don't know, an hour and 15 minutes outside of St. Louis. And
Yeah.
she came in to have dinner with us.
And I finally picked the spot, and it's called Yesterday's Bar and Grill. And the food was fantastic, but they had no air conditioning, if you recall.
it
So
was a
it was
was
a little
sweltering.
still inside. But I have a 6 a.m. flight the next morning, so we head back to the hotel, hit the sack. Unfortunately for you, the following morning, my alarm goes off at 3:15 a.m. I awakened you. I apologize again. I have a 5:50 a.m. flight from St. Louis to LAX, so I wanted to give myself plenty of time because I have to navigate my bike bag, which is a big hard shell about the size of a bicycle. I've got to get it to the airport, which is across the highway. I'm going to use the shuttle at the hotel. I managed to get everything on. I managed to get to the airport, and it's 4 a.m. and it's total chaos. I mean, I've never seen so many people in an airport that early in the morning, and the line to check bags is a mile long. I'm not exaggerating. And I began to feel the panic rising in my throat. And I look on my phone at my boarding pass, and it says something like executive, and there's a separate line for executive, and there's nobody in that line. So, serendipity, I had chosen to upgrade weeks ago before this trip, and I don't remember exactly why. I wanted an early boarding spot, but now I've got the big benefit, and that is I can check bags and there's nobody in front of me. And there's a Starbucks on the way to my gate. So all good. And the trip is over. Final thoughts, Chris Compton.
I had a great time. First of all, it was my first real bike adventure with another human being. I have done 2 centuries on the Silver Comet. I've ridden from Jacksonville, Florida to Siesta Key, Florida, and I've ridden from Miami to Seattle. And all of those adventures were basically solo. It's a completely different experience, right? You get the benefit when you're with somebody else, you get the benefit of their company, of their counsel. You share your troubles, you spread things out. So you had 5 flat tires. I didn't have any flat tires, but you had me there for support to come back and help you with the tires, to get in and out to the bike shop, all that sort of thing. But we also have to make the decisions together. So maybe you didn't want to eat at a certain place that I picked, or you wouldn't have stayed in a hotel, or you would have gone a few miles further, or I would, or whatever. So, so that's the difference in riding with someone and riding by yourself. Is there are advantages and disadvantages to everything. I enjoyed it very much. Another thing you would think about if you were doing this with somebody else, some people are you're not going to get along with particularly well, and you should think about, you know, do I want to sleep next to this person, whether it's inside or outside, for the next 6 nights, or are they going to annoy me? And if, say, you're a much stronger, say somebody went with us that was 25 or 30 years younger than we were, they could do this in half the time we did it, and and maybe they want to. So these are things to take into consideration. If somebody asked me, should they ride the Katy Trail, it would not be my first choice of dedicated bicycle trips. The reason is because there's a lot of the same. There's a lot of the same scenery. It's the river all day. It's flat, but it's flat. It's a good warm-up trip. It's a good first trip. Um, but if I were only going to do one 7-day bike trip somewhere in the country, I'd probably look at some of my other options before the Katy Trail. Having said that, I had a great time and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I wouldn't either. I agree with everything you said, especially the fact that Katy Trail is a dedicated trail. It spans over 200 miles if you just start at one end and do the other. We actually added mileage to it. It
What did we do?
is
About 260 miles, something like that?
almost 300 miles.
Almost 300 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't, and if somebody wanted to, if somebody said, should I ride the Katy Trail? I would say yes, with some caveats. It is a lot of the same scenery over and over. You do have a tree canopy. It is well maintained. It is an amazing piece of work that a bike trail exists where a railroad once did. So you have to appreciate all the effort and fundraising and donations and work that goes into building it and maintaining it. And the people in Missouri really consider it a treasure, and I don't blame them one bit for that. I think the way this trip went was exactly the way it was supposed to go. I wouldn't do it any other
Oh,
way.
yeah,
And I too had a
absolutely.
wonderful time. It was a great adventure, and our bond grew even greater. And I'm looking forward to our next adventure together.